Supergirl Season 4. This is the spoiler review. I have a review up on my blog on soundingbettermyhead.com. It's got a handful of spoilers in there, but none of the really big stuff's in there. So if you want to read that first or after or whatever, go for it. I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 for this season. It's another one where it's almost a tale of two shows, I guess you call it. Basically, the first half of the season was essentially all about alien rights, and then the second half is all about Lex Luthor. The first half overall works pretty good. You know, they try their best to make it contemporary, especially what's going on in America right now. You know, these actual outer space aliens are kind of stand-ins for, you know, immigrants and even some illegal aliens coming to, you know, United States. And it just, you know, about prejudice and giving them a fair chance. And it gets a little heavy-handed, like most things Supergirl does. But I think they make some valid arguments on both sides of the issue. There's basically a whole episode dedicated to how Ben Lockwood goes from actually being I would say a fairly liberal person who supports alien rights to basically becoming a man that is willing to murder aliens. And what happens to him, you know, the reason he goes through these changes makes sense. You know, it's not just one thing, it's multiple things as he starts to go down this path. I think the only real downside is, even after seeing what happened to him, you never really feel bad for him again. You never feel like, man, if he could just redeem himself, that'd be great. Yeah, they just don't, it's just not thorough enough to make you want a redemption arc for his character. Another thing that really sells it is Supergirl herself. Just that her acting is always on par. I can never not rave enough about her acting job as Supergirl. But just as I said, she brings this earnestness. She just really believes in people being treated fairly and being treated for who they are, not what they are. That it just comes through throughout the show. They also added the Dreamer character this time around, and she's a lot like Kara was in the season 1. It's a little bit, comes off a little bit naive and a little bit unsure of herself. But you know, her being an alien and being like transgender, she's got, which is kind of a lot to put on the plate, by the way, for any character. But having both of those makes her that much more sympathetic towards everything that's going on. Just it gives an extra voice to kind of say, hey, you know, give people a chance. And I think it works. You know, this is one of her first real major acting roles. I think she did a pretty solid job. Once they switch over to the superhero stuff, it's a little bit hit and miss with her. Especially, they take a big jump from just kind of learning her powers to suddenly she's got the costume, she's doing all kinds of stuff that they never really define her abilities. Like, we know she could interpret dreams and kind of see the future, but all of a sudden she's shooting like energy and dream powers, and it's never really explained, and I'm not even sure what all she can do. And they also made it, I guess because she's new and she's kind of naive, you know, they give her a lot of corny, like, tries to like catchphrases every time she does something cool, you know, something usually sleep or dream related as a pun. And, you know, it works for her character. Also this season we added Brainiac 5 to the cast full time. He's kind of a mixed bag. He's such an oddball character, and sometimes he works, sometimes he doesn't. I know he's supposed to be kind of like a comic relief, but it kind of takes away from his character sometimes. Again, he's supposed to be like super smart. We don't always see him doing anything that particularly smart. You know, his big thing is using math to like dodge attacks and, you know, hacking stuff, which he doesn't come off that much smarter than Wynn, who supposedly was supposed to be at least make some appearances this season, and not a single episode, not a single scene we've seen him this year. So that was a little, I don't want to say disappointed, but this kind of weird. He was such a major character for all this time, and just you don't see him at all. Then leading into the second half of the season, we get Lex Luthor added. I was a little leery of how John Cryer would do as Lex Luthor, but he did a really good job. You know, he had the right amount of menace. He came off as highly intelligent. He's a little goofy sometimes, but I think it worked for his portrayal of the character. Just absolute mastermind, always planning so many steps ahead. It's almost to the point of being unbelievable, but not quite. The only weird thing is, for his story to work, they basically had to go back and essentially retcon most of the season and show, oh, by the way, Lex was here for this, or Lex was here for that. And it works, but it didn't feel like that was what they intended from the beginning. And they just, like I said, it was just a retcon to make sure that he fit into everything, especially Red Daughter's story, which is another weird one because there was a big cliffhanger last season as what we thought were Russians had, their own Supergirl, and as we see, she's trained by the Kaznians, and her story kind of disappears a lot, and it only really goes into high gear when Lex Luthor shows up. But another great acting job. She kind of feels like a different character. The accent's pretty solid. She's like this Russian girl kind of learning about the world and learning about the evils of America. And when she even meets face to face with the real Supergirl, she just said it just works. It just feels like it's two different people. Unfortunately, Lex is so good that he's off the screen a lot. He's not on the show for a few episodes, and it's just like the search for Lex, and everything else kind of falls flat during this point. And it's like you just want Lex to come back because it's all about what his henchmen are doing, and it's just not as interesting once you get that taste for it. Another fairly big plotline this season, which I think just never really hit its mark, was the John Jones Man of Peace and the Manchester Black, vengeance thing. They were supposed to play off each other, and he's supposed to be goading Manhunter into being like a killer, basically, using all his powers to like punish, the evil. I said, it just never seemed to work. It was too much of a stress for John to be so convinced about having to stay like almost like a monk, like, oh, I can't hurt anybody. And Manchester Black was just kind of all over the place, I think, too, with his arc. And then it was supposed to be this big thing that he died, and John was supposed to be like a badass now, and he really wasn't. I don't know. I did like almost like a private eye kind of thing they had going for John Jones, where he's doing this thing off to the side. I think it gave him his own fresh storyline away from the DEO. But I said, just overall, I didn't think it worked. Alex, they had the storyline where she had to get mind wiped, so she couldn't reveal Kara's identity, and it really was kind of pointless. It had some impact on Kara early on, and then it was another thing about how she learned not to have prejudice towards aliens because she grew up with an alien as an adopted sister, and then once she lost that memory, she became she was anti-Supergirl and less sympathetic toward aliens. And then after a couple episodes, they just completely forgot all about it, and she just worked with Supergirl like it was nothing. She just happened to not know who she really was, which, like I said, was really not that big of a deal. Another weird plot line was they had to give Jimmy Olsen superpowers, and he gets them, and then they get unstable, and then they fix them. Now he's basically like on par with the Kryptonian, and then basically in the end they're gone. So I don't know what the point of that was. It really didn't accomplish anything. It gave them a chance to bring his sister into the show, which felt like they just kind of quickly threw her and Alex together. It's like it felt like they needed like another girlfriend for Alex, and they gave her Jimmy's sister, and I never really felt any big chemistry. They hung out a few times, and then next thing you know, they're making out, and just felt a little rushed. We'll see where they take it, but I wasn't too just to say I wasn't feeling the chemistry. Her and Maggie Sawyer I thought were awesome together. I really liked that pairing. And that's it. A few other things kind of came in. It was a big deal that they were introducing Mercy Graves, who was really more of a Superman, cartoon character, and she basically died off pretty quickly. She didn't get to do a hell of a lot. And then they killed Otis and brought him back a bunch of times. But again, I don't think they tried really hard to tie the whole Agent Liberty alien-hating storyline into the Lex Luthor stuff. I don't think it really worked as well as it could have. Just felt like the other one became an afterthought, the whole Agent Liberty thing. And even when the president declared martial law, you never seen you've rarely seen anything make you feel like these people had to go home and stay in their houses because there's tanks down the street, even though they mentioned that there was. You really don't see it. I never felt like they were being oppressed. Just kind of a bad job there. I don't think I got a ton else. This part of the review, I'm going to go with my traditional whipping through my notes, see anything that jumps out at me that's worth mentioning. Even one little thing. A way to have Superman explain away why he's not helping, these big end of the world situations. At least it worked this time that he was told about Argo City, and then he went to go visit basically a whole bunch of Kryptonians, including his aunt for the first time. So it was a solid way to get him off the show, and it actually makes a ton of sense, character wise. A small gripe is that it's fine when you're trying to look at a current event in America and try to make your own opinion on it. I think a lot of shows just are too specific with their wording, and it's a blatant thing at a certain administration, which right now is the Trump administration. But I think it makes the show age a little bit if you go back later and you watch some of these shows and they're doing some kind of variant on "Make America Great Again." It just reminds me of an era that came and went. Definitely went back and forth on General Haley, I should say. Just, I don't know, they made her like an asshole, and then they made her kind of cool, then they made her an asshole again, and it's felt like they couldn't make their mind up, and then in the end, they ultimately went with her that she was a good guy. But it was such a weird back and forth that it just kind of couldn't figure out where they were going with her. Again, there's a few episodes where there's some pretty major stuff going on that should take precedent, but these characters were focused on oh, we gotta work about a relationship. We got to the crossover, which was pretty cool. I liked that Deegan became his version of Superman. It was kind of fun seeing the evil Superman. They had one weird moment where Brad's daughter was sick. They hit her with the electricity, and for some strange reason it sent her purple energy out, and it just infected some drugs that people were taking at parties. It was the most random thing. I thought there was going to be maybe more things affected, and it just wasn't. It was so weird. Pretty deep cut by Dreamer's sister when she basically called her out and said, you're not even a real woman. I mean, I'm sure, number one, if you're transgender, I'm sure that's probably one of those painful things a family member could say to you. But it's also kind of weird because in this story, only women inherit the Dreamer power, and since she inherited the Dreamer power, evidently she's considered a woman on that level. So that's a little odd, but that's science fiction superheroes for you. This happens in a couple episodes, and it always makes me laugh when there'll be some kind of thing where footage is revealed, and you see something oh, we had this on camera, and then you realize it's blatantly just the footage from the show. There's no way this was a security camera. They're just replaying what the camera shot for the show, and it kind of cracks me up. They did it at the season finale too, which I'll get to later, but Lana seeing all this footage that proves Kara Supergirl, but it's no way this was security camera footage. And then as far as the finale itself, kind of odd. The fight scenes were kind of weak. You had this weird Agent of Liberty and his goons versus Jimmy Olsen and them, and we never got to see Jimmy look like he was anywhere as powerful as they hinted he was going to be, some kind of Kryptonian level thing. Then it just didn't work. You had Supergirl wearing the armor, and instead of flying or doing anything normally like she would do, she's doing backflips and crazy moves that is not in character for her. And the whole rock music thing that they were using, it just seemed kind of corny and over the top. Another thing that they kind of dropped, and I thought was going to go into the next season, be pretty interesting, was Brainy getting rebooted and basically becoming almost not evil, but have you ever seen Supernatural where Sam lost his soul? It was like that, because he had no compassion. And it seemed like it was really going to be something cool to go next season. Maybe he becomes some kind of villain. You start to go back to the Brainiac kind of conquering ways. And then a few episodes later, he just kind of reboots and professes his love for Dreamer and everything's good. I don't know enough about DC to know what Leviathan is. I had a glance at it, some kind of evil organization. I guess that's going to be the big thing next year. Besides, the hints towards a crisis. We got the evil Manhunter, which I believe is John's brother, and then we had possibly Luther coming back to life at the hands of the Monitor. Don't know for sure. That's really all I got. I just wanted to get into some details that I didn't want to get into the other review. So, thanks for watching.